Surrogate partner therapy work is sometimes mind-blowing. And today I have a story I want to share with you. But before I share the story, I have a question for you. Do you believe that everyone deserves touch, connection, and intimacy if they want it? Anybody. Well, sometimes people out there don't often think that people have physical disabilities, and sometimes severe ones deserve any of those things. And it's easy for them to grow up, as they get older and more into adulthood. We still see them as, dependent and we don't often consider that they have sexual needs or needs to be touched and needs to be held and needs to have touch that isn't clinical or familial, right? Like the touch of a person they may be attracted to or someone of, the gender of their attraction, right? So I have a story. It's really unique. It's in a lot of ways a first time for me. This client I flew all the way to LA to see, and he so persistent and made a way, him and his family, to have me there with him for 2 days to experience for the first time what it's like to be an adult human in this life. And my story is being shared with permission, so that if any of you who are my clients, just don't worry that I'll be sharing your stories here at any time soon. But he was really excited for me to share. And also, for those of you who are curious as well, I'm still doing professional cuddling. I'm still available for those type of sessions. And of course, surrogate partner therapy work is unique. It works, there's a team of people that work together. I am the body person, but there is also a talk pro. There are, we include family members. In this case, because of the physical disabilities, because there are, special things, part of it, I was in communication with a parent of his, and we made sure everything was set up and exactly as it needed to be, right, to make this encounter possible. So let me walk through a little bit about some of the obstacles that were present, right, because that's sometimes you'd be like, okay, what kind of physical disabilities, what was that like? And I'm like, wow. So I had some ideas before I showed up, but of course, once you're there, it's like, oh, I didn't know to ask this. I didn't know, how severe it could be. So this is what it is. So the client is in a power chair, and I've worked with people in power chairs. That's not a problem. But what complicates it a little bit is, let's see, what do I say first? So let's look at the hands, right? The thing that we in surrogate partner work, it's essential. The hands are so important. In this case, there are gloves on the hands, right? So the hands are already, I don't have access to the skin. And that's it feels like I'm slashed, okay, no skin touch. And then the next thing that, I noticed the feet, right? These really sensitive parts of the body. There's shoes and socks, right? Feet are gone. Okay, with the hands are tied. So I was like, oh no, okay, so what does that mean? And I asked Mom, can you explain a little bit about what's happening here? This one I didn't know before I showed up. So because there's involuntary movement, just kind of, muscular movement, that the client could hurt me, right? Could either bang up against me or, hurt me, or they could hurt themselves, which I think is actually probably more common. So the hands are tied off to the side. All right, so the next thing, they have a communication device. So there was not going to be any way to have any verbal communication that, to be able to have consent, verbal consent. So we were going to need to use this communication device to be able to communicate. That adds on to it. Because the client also has, they perspired a lot. Or it seems maybe it was because I was there, I don't know, I never asked, do you usually perspire this much, or is it because you're just excited to have me around? I don't know what that was about. But, all right, so here we are, right, they need to be covered up, so there's, a shirt all the way down fully covered. Luckily they had buttons, so I was like, ooh, buttons, great. Like I can like sneak my hand in and like touch skin. Like pretty much the only skin I really had access to would be like the chest and like the face and the head. But everything else was, you know, when I showed up was like, it was gonna be covered. And let me think, what else was there that I wanted to share? Of course, because they're in a parture, they can't, you know, get up. So they were going to stay in the chair. No use of hands, feet. Anyway, so moving forward about, like, so when you think about a person that's received only clinical touch their entire life, or familial touch, right? So like a parent touching, or like just taking care of, or like bathing and all of that. You know, there's this growing desire, you know, what's it like to be touched, in this case, by a woman, right? That's the gender of his attraction. You know, what would it be like to be with a woman? What would it be like to feel like my skin, but like have this connection that so rich and like get excited, right? Like, you know, when you like somebody and you're like, I just want to touch you, maybe I want to kiss you, or like just to feel your skin, just how soft it is and all of that. So here it is, right? There's this need, and luckily, again, I was able to make it. It was quite an obstacle. It looked kind of far out. So actually, for me, it was like an hour and a half outside of like the airport, and so it was a distance, but we made it. It was a two-day session. So that was another thing, is that I wanted to make sure that we had time the first day to focus on our connection, communication, start to create some play, some fun together, and then day 2 would be like more intimate kind of work that we would do together. Some things, for those of you who are interested, I won't be able to share everything that we did here, being that there are some parts of my work that's private, and I don't be sharing that. If you are someone who also has a physical disability, or has a similar story, or has similar needs, I encourage you to contact Dr. Susan Kaye, who is the Talk Pro, the person that was overseeing this case, and I'll have her phone number in the description somewhere, or somewhere in the comments or description somewhere below. So let's see what happens next. And we can go and explain a little bit more about how the work in its full capacity can work, but not in this video. So I want to go through some of the basics though. So day 1, we got to know each other. And again, it took time, right? Because, you know, I highly admire people that need to use communication devices. It is a slower process, right? You know, sometimes each word takes time to find each word, takes time to communicate thoughts. I highly valued as well how amazing it was to get that we could see, what am I trying to say here? I'm thinking these funny thoughts, you know, I have stories. I've created stories about my client. Like you said, words that probably never gets to say, right? Like talking about body parts and, you know, talking about sexuality, talking about what things are like. And I have the smile on my face just remembering some of the words that were able to be written out, and then press, you know, he would be able to, with his head, be able to press the play button, and then these certain words would come up. That we got to, you know, talk about sex and stuff, just, you know, chatting with someone who maybe you don't get a chance to talk about these things in person with someone, right? You're not gonna talk to your doctor about it necessarily. So it was again, I have a smile on my face when I think about these kinds of conversations that were just so real and honest. So we're getting to know each other. We're, you know, trying to figure out also what can we do together? What might feel really good? I find out that he likes similar music as me, and I'm like, oh, let's play some of the music. And it's kind of music that I love dancing to, so some reggaeton or some cumbia. We share that, and so, you know, I realized I really wanted to untie his hands. I really want to be able to have more of a connection. So I take one of his hands, his arm, and I put it, I guess I'm going to be a little bit more graphic, you know, put it kind of near my thighs, and would hold it there, and I would dance so he could feel my body moving, and experience me being playful and having fun. And that was a really, like, for me, felt really creative way to dance. I could hold his hand, I could put it between my legs, I could take his hand and have him feel my skin. I needed to be semi-careful where the hand went because of the involuntary movement. At one point, he's gonna watch this video, and I'm realizing, like, I'm kind of semi-filtering because I realize he's gonna watch this. I want to share this with him. But at some point, he like grabbed my breast, right? And it was like, oh, like that hurt. I had to like peel his fingers off because it was like, ouch, because he's so strong, right? I guess I didn't, he's like really tall and he has long limbs, and so yes, very strong hands. So there was like moments I had to be really careful that I wouldn't like bring his hand somewhere that he would close it and then, it could be painful. So, but again, we had a miscommunication at one point when I asked him like which arm or hand did he prefer using, and I made a mistake. I thought he said right, but my brain switched it and it was left, and so I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, and switched anyway. So it was, again, a lot of like learning to communicate and how patient he was with me when I didn't remember things that he had shared with me. So at some point, again, this is day one, I decide that I'd like to straddle him on his chair, and this is how it went. Before I did that, I needed to establish some consent and needed to be able to have, like, what's the safe word, right? Because I'll explain what the safe word was going to be, or like what wasn't going to be a word, right? It was going to be some kind of expression, what his yes and what his no was. Because in straddling him, his communication device, which is kind of up front, would have to be moved over and it would be gone. Like it wouldn't be available for communication anymore. So what happened next was, once we established like there would be like a sound that he could make that would let me know that what was happening was not wanted anymore, or wasn't desirable, or like something needed to change, or he needed to find a way to communicate, then we found that great. And like his yes and his no, sometimes, like, again, there was involuntary head movement, so I needed to be able to like clearly get a yes and get a no and make sure that I was reading him well. So then communication device got turned over and I straddled him, and it was fun to be really up close. Like, this is probably the closest kind of cuddling that I could do with him, keeping him like, almost like chest to chest, even cheek to cheek. And at some point, doing some light kissing. It's really sweet. Again, because of involuntary movement, or like not having control over like jaw and mouth, it was different. It wasn't going to be the kind of kissing that you would normally see, movies or like people do, but it was, again, about that like the connection, right? Our lips are really sensitive, and having that and potentially some tongue touching too is, again, having the ability to feel someone else in a way that like that's not going to be a thing that you would experience unless you have this like intimate connection with someone. And and allowing him to just feel my heat and feel my body, have it there with him. So that's the end of day one. Day two, I knew that it was going to be definitely more intimacy, more connection. There was, of course, lots of excitement in the air. Mom and parents, the guardians present were really supportive. I really experienced, again, a lot of acceptance of this process, and this is something that he wanted, and everyone was on board to making this like a reality for him to have this experience. And a lot of sacrifices were also made to make it possible, which I'm amazed with, that there are people out there that want people with physical disabilities to have these experiences. So anyway, day two was much more about skin touch. I knew it was coming. There was going to be a couple hours of lying down in the bed, and I think the part that was really important to me about that was making sure our communication was as strong as it could be, because at this point there wasn't the option of like bringing back the communication device, right? When I was straddling him, it got put away, But at this point now, it's like, okay, it's going to, like, getting out of the chair and into the bed was going to like completely take away any way of communication like that. So I wanted to make sure that I had, you know, again, clarity around like consent and like what he wanted, and try to do my best to think through everything that was possible for this experience. And so there was more body exploration. I'm thinking here at this point, I'm not able to share comfortably some of the details publicly in this way, but let's just say that by the time our time finished, he was satisfied. He had reached the goals that he had for himself for our time together, and was able to learn a lot about, like, as I explained, like about my body and how my body works and how women's bodies work in this realm of things, and got to, you know, again, all the touch that we got to have, and the connection, intimacy, and just bringing somebody to adulthood in a way that I don't know what to say. It's life-giving, really. I'm gonna say that again now that I found the word. Bringing someone to adulthood in a way that's really life-giving and affirming to who they are as a human. Yeah. So what can I say about this experience? I think it really affirmed who I am as a surrogate, that it comes really naturally for me to be with all types of people, and to love people where they're at, and to love them as they are in any body that they're in. Even the grumpy ones, you out there who are grumpy, you're also very lovable. Because I get those sometimes. People that, you know, struggle with life, struggle with being here, struggle with whatever it is. I have this love for you. And there was so much love in that space, in that room, with this person. Sometimes I surprise myself at how easy it was to love. I don't know, for me sometimes it feels really easy to love people when they're present to be human with me. And I can't say that I've always been that way with people, but with this person it was unbelievable. It's beautiful. And now they can move forward in life and explore their own new adventures out there in the world. And yeah, I'm blessed to have brought him into a more human experience. But I guess that's all I'm going to share for now. Thanks for listening to the story. And as always, I want to bring more videos to you all. And my regrets that it's taken this long, many months. But I thank you for watching. Take care.